Well, welcome back to a New Polities podcast. I'm here with Andrew Jones.
Hello.
We're here to talk about political philosophy. There's some recent events that occurred lately that have made us think about some fundamental things, and we'd like to get into those. But I wanted to set up the conversation, right, by saying that one thing that we're interested in here at New Polity is a radical critique of the forms of our culture, how it's operating, how it's been going. And one of the things that I really like is I draw a lot of inspiration from Elizabeth Anscombe, right? And have done a lot of work on her. And she makes this observation in her most famous essay, Modern Moral Philosophy. And she says that all of the diversity of theories in modern moral philosophy are sort of an illusion. What matters is the similarity between all these surfacey differences. And she says the similarity of all these modern moral philosophers is that they reject traditional morality. So they don't have a philosophy where there's such a thing as what's intrinsically wrong. And she said that's the most significant fact, that they reject that. And I think you have a similar view, right, that I share with you. And that's that modern political philosophy has rejected a fundamental component of the classical medieval tradition, right, that has to do with the nature of power and authority.
Right.
And so I think the way to get into that is talk about the regime and the regime forms.
Right.
And so I think if we get into that, we're going to see that the old school, let's call it that, the old school notion, the Platonic, the Christian conception, authority is necessarily just.
Right.
Whereas whereas I think that when we think about authority now, we have an authority, and then we ask, is it legitimate or not? And so we don't build in justice to the question.
In fact, very often authority is used to merely mean power that is somehow not questionable.
Yeah, it's like the boss on top.
Yeah. This guy has the authority to do that, or the authority to do this, and it's actually used often interchangeably. I mean, you read someone like John Locke, and he uses the word power, like so and so has this power, like the magistrate has this power or that power.
Yes,
and it's like, does he? Are we talking about de facto power? Are we talking about, what do you mean he has that power?
Yeah,
and it's like, well, what he means is he has the authority, by which what he means is this is what he ought to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like that's
exactly.
That's actually what he means, which is just a totally bankrupt philosophical move, because the question of power, right? The question of power, before you even begin discussing how power ought to be used. So in modern politics, there's all kinds of arguments about what we should do with power, what kind of constitution we should have. Should we care about military might? Should we care about material wealth? Should we care about individual freedom?
All these pieces and parts around that we can arrange in certain ways.
Like, and like, well, if we ever, this constitution is the best for this one is the best for that.
Yeah.
And power, the question of power itself just sort of falls. Yeah. Right. It's not asked.
Yes. And I think if we can think of what's in common with all those conceptions of power, there's like a super bare, thin, right, univocal notion going through them. That's what you
there's
write
this,
about.
The idea. I mean, what happens is that the question. So before you ask a question like how should we use power, you have to ask what power is, like how it works, right? The forms it can take under which circumstances, right? How the reality of power relates to the reality of different social orders, right? Like what what sort of So an example would be something like in our little prep we were talking about. You asked me for an example, and the example I came up at the top of my head was something like in a society that is greedy, that promises of wealth are powerful. Like they have efficacy. So if we have this bare notion of power as the ability for one man to affect the behavior of another. Okay, so that if we
pure efficacy,
so like just an efficacy. Okay, we can have that sort of bare minimum, and we can treat that sort of as the bare univocal understanding of power.
And then we leave the question behind after that point.
That question, that itself, then you have to ask yourself, okay, well that means if that's what we mean by power, then we're introducing. In order to understand power, we have to understand the two people involved. All right. One man has the ability to affect the behavior of the other man. All right. Now, both of those people are now have to come into the analysis.
Yes.
And then the circumstances that they find themselves in also has to come into the analysis.
Yes. And what's powerful is dependent on all those broader, the context, I could say, to include all that.
Right.
So an agent, if I'm an agent and I want to, or a person doing things, and I want to affect a change in a greedy society, there's certain means of doing it because there's certain ends that are in the background as desired.
That's right. So
But in another society, that's not the case. So what's in one society, what is powerful, in another society might be completely powerless.
Powerless. That's
Power
right.
Power is a form, so it has an intrinsic order to it. It's not pure efficacy, right? We can understand it by abstraction, you might say, but in actual powerful.
In order to understand how it is that power is or isn't efficacious, then the first move towards understanding that, you're busting out of the univocity, and now you're talking through analogy.
Yes.
You're saying power in a tyranny is somewhat related to power in a monarchy,
yes,
or power in an oligarchy,
yes,
right? But they're no longer, they don't have the same content. They're not aimed at the same ends. They're not experienced the same way. They're not, right? The means that are available, like the actual mechanisms of power aren't the same, right? Like you're actually now talking about different things.
Yeah. So can I jump in right there? So I think that back to the comparison with Anscombe, is so if what it really is involves an analysis of the people acting, right, the agents as well as the patients, the people being acted upon, if it requires an understanding of circumstances, and that this person doing this thing towards the other person in one society is powerful and not another, we have to look at the agent himself and the object of the power. And that's
the relationship between them.
And that's the only way to actually understand what power is. And so if we are in the modern state of affairs, if I can say it, broad brush, right, is that those questions are off the table. We just move immediately forward and say, how are we going to arrange things? How's the boss on top going to arrange things, right, in various ways? And so the question about the agent having a nature, or the patient having a nature, or the social conditions having a kind of nature and conditions that have to be respected to pull out the goods that are available is left behind.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the reason why...
That's a monumental shift.
The reason why... So what we're getting at here, let me just back up, is this brief little discussion of power here is what in the classical tradition, this is the reason why they talk about regime forms. So when they talk about regime forms, they're talking about a total political form, right? So and within that form, you're talking about the moral condition of the people. You're talking about the way in which their society is structured. And then at some point you start talking about what we might think of as like constitutions or arrangements of power.
Yes.
But that power is intrinsic to the regime form.
Yeah.
All right. So it's not like what I'm trying to say is like monarchies are societies in which monarchical power is efficacious.
Yes.
Oligarchies are societies in which oligarchic power is efficacious.
Yes.
And no other power is.
Yes.
So, so in order to, so
there's a complete package. And so like the way I was thinking about it is when you say regime form, so I'm hearing form as a philosopher, right? I'm hearing the classical notion of form is the actuality of something, right? So the soul is a form. And so the form is the actuality of a body. What makes this body not an inanimate, non-living body, but an animate one is the soul. And so that's not just the shape of your body, right? It's a principle that informs how your body's going to repair it when it's damaged. You might say the DNA is like the voice of your form. It's doing everything for your body all through time and at every moment. Right. And so that is a dynamic pattern or actuality. And then the matter is required, right, for that thing. And so when I hear regime form in the classical understanding, or that understanding of form, which the medievals take, right, it's like you said, it's to condition the moral condition of the people, what they desire at every level, right? It includes the people as the sort of matter, right? And then the societal form as the actuality of that people, right? So there's an intrinsic relationship between form and matter, and they limit each other.
That's absolutely right.
And whereas the modern form, I think they just ignore, right, that dynamic. And form to them, they might use that word, but it means merely like shape, right, or arrangement.
That's right. It means something like arrangement.
They don't have to think about the people themselves.
I mean, what I think that what the move that's been made is and this move, this is you see this thing in the history of philosophy, these kinds of moves, is that they decide the regime question basically before they begin, the moderns. So basically the reason they can get away with this is they basically assume that all regimes are tyrannical in the classical sense. Like what you're assuming the classics would have understood as being a tyranny.
Yeah. So what we're calling tyrannical, we're describing them. They wouldn't themselves say that.
No, but it amounts to that conceptually. That tyrannical power, the way in which power works in a tyranny is what power is.
Yeah.
simple.
Yes.
Like
and that's all there is.
And that's the only form of power there is.
Yes.
That's the and so the tyrannical, once you've solved, you've ended the question of regimes before you've even begun. Then you start arguing about how we should arrange the tyranny.
Yes. So can I just comment on illustrate this? I think I can illustrate this with Aristotle's famous regimes, right? The list of those. Right. So he divides them into, there's 6 of them. 3 on one side is unjust and 3 on the other side are just. And they're divided by how many people are ruling. And a lot of our viewers are probably familiar with this list. But I think in the modern way of thinking, we imagine these as sort of ideal arrangements, right? That then we can either impose or not impose.
Oh yeah, like they're constitutions.
Yeah, they're constitutions, in other words.
Yeah,
Whereas for Aristotle, he said, no, I'm giving you this sort of pattern, but each one of these is a form and matter composite. Right.
Yes.
And so there's a certain societies, he says, they might be tyrannical. But if you were to impose, right, say a polity or an aristocracy or a kingship on them, right, you might actually destroy that people. And so the best you can do might be, the best you can do might be to make them less tyrannical. And so that might be the best move, because the matter or the people can only admit of so much form. Like I can't build a chair out of oxygen molecules. Right. There has to be a particular type of matter that is predisposed to the form. And so when we talk about regime forms, right, from the classical medieval perspective, it's always about the people as a whole, right, and the ruler having an intrinsic relationship to each other.
That's right. Yeah. And these aren't. We have to understand that these are not just variations of the same thing. That's the modern move, right? Okay, all political power is more or less the same thing. It all kind of functions the same. So what kind do we want? I think we should have a democracy. I think we should have a aristocracy. I think we should have this. That
all ideal models or forms.
But that's not what's going on in the classics. I mean, in the classical philosophical tradition, it's that they like we've been talking about, they're really different. So maybe I'll throw a quote out here for Aristotle, from Aristotle, because you've broadly speaking, there's 2 different categories. There's just regimes and unjust regimes. This is picked up, of course, into the medievals, I mean, Augustine, and then all the way through.
Totally common.
But I mean, St. Thomas will describe the same basic dichotomy by talking about there's the human mastery. So the human rule, that one person ruling over other people, are either just, which means it's rule for the common good, or unjust, which means it's rule for the one who's ruling, the good for the one who's ruling, right? So you have that same basic division. All right. So Aristotle, and one way of describing them, a sort of shorthand, would be that just regimes are royal or monarchical, whereas unjust ones are tyrannical. So aristocracies and polities are monarchical, even though they may not actually have a king. But the power that's in play resembles that of a king. Whereas
that's like the paradigmatic way of thinking about it, but it shares in common all the same features.
So Aristotle says, okay. Well, first maybe I'll go with Plato first. So in Plato's Statesman, Socrates agrees with this statement. Okay. And it is no doubt the case that we are to address as a tyrannical art the care of those who submit to force, and as the political art, the voluntary herd grooming of voluntary 2-footed animals, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but
it is.
And declare that he who has this as an art and care is in his being king and statesman. Okay, then Aristotle will say, for kings rule according to law over voluntary subjects, but tyrants over involuntary. And the one are guarded by their fellow citizens, the others are guarded against them. All right, so right from the bat, you're talking about 2
fundamentally different,
fundamentally like opposites.
They are contrary, logically contrary. One's voluntary, one's involuntary.
One rules according to law, the other according to will. One rules through the citizens, right, guarded by their fellow citizens. The other are guarded against them. One rules the citizens. Right. I mean, like, so you got to give the classics some leeway in their language, right? But that's the idea. For in one regime, the citizens are the regime. And the other regime, the regime is on top of them. Right. I mean, the
violent.
Power.
You could say there's a violence. Like if I try to make a chair, right, out of oxygen molecules, right, I'm going to be somehow trying to hold them in this like weird.
But those 2 diametrically opposed things have power, efficaciousness that are not anything but barely analogously related to each other. Right. And they actually operate in a totally different way.
Yes.
And
that fundamental difference is what we're trying to find. He said the political art is the one, and the other one's not a political art.
That's right.
It looks like it. So if we look at Aristotle, maybe back to that chart, is people think, well, is one ruling or many or few? Right. And they think that's what matters. And what matters is it just or is it not just? That's what matters. The number is just sort of like a convenient way of speaking that happened to, be easy to describe lots of different regime forms for him, so he could then teach his legislators on how to make an actual people better.
And those, whether or not one rules, few rule, or many rule breaks down because when you get further into the tradition, especially with Thomas.
Yes.
He'll get to the point where he just comes out and says the very best regime is precisely a monarchy that is also an aristocracy, that is also a polity.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's royal. The point. That's the point.
Royal.
Yes.
This is the royal form. Is exactly the perfection of all of those things. Yes. Now I think that so. I mean, you started out. We started out talking about there have been some events that have gotten us thinking about this.
Yeah, glad you're connecting that.
And this is why we bring this up. So earlier in the semester, and earlier in the fall, there was a conference here at Franciscan that was put on by basically the post-liberal order guys. Okay, so
which some of our viewers know and some of them don't.
They don't. But I mean, it's Adrian Vermeule, Patrick Deneen, Gladden Papin, Sora Bamari, and Chad Pecknold. I think that's basically
and associates,
and lots of other people.
Al.
Yes, but those are the principal guys. And then just last week, there was another good conference also on the common good. So both of these were about the common good down at the John Paul II Institute in D.C. And that was myself, Schindler, Hanby. Okay, so a different group of people were down there. And there emerged a very real, a very obvious distinction.
Yeah.
Okay, both talking about the common good, but that one, I think the conference here, I think overwhelmingly we're not making this distinction between the royal and the tyrannical, the just and the unjust. Like they weren't.
That question seemed to have been in the background and unimportant by the way the conversations went. It wasn't crucial, whereas we think this is absolutely crucial. In the CUA conference, this is absolutely crucial.
The content of the conference down in D.C. was overwhelmingly about what is authority and how is it distinct from power.
Yes.
Or how is it power and authority? What exactly are they? And so it just seems like that is something that we have to really kind of wrestle with here, because if we make the move I think the post-liberal order guys were making, which is that power is not problematic at all. Power is just a thing, and we can use it.
The efficaciousness, can I put it this way? It seems that what matters about power is just the efficaciousness. So if the modern administrative state is efficacious for ends that are good, well, let's go for it. It's great.
I mean, but the problem is the philosophical problem is that what the classical tradition would dispute is precisely that it be efficacious for the good.
Yes.
Right, because something that's efficacious for the bad, tyrannical, is efficacious tyrannically, but not efficacious royally.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So
you might really effectively completely destroy yourself. Right. But that's not power. Right.
Well, I mean, like things that will work to produce a tyrannical regime will not work to produce a royal regime.
Or are not powerful or not efficacious.
They don't work. So we have to discuss this, and I think the way to do it is to begin where Aristotle begins, which is to understand friendship.
Yeah.
Okay, because you have this. Why is it that a king's power is authority, meaning that it's voluntarily obeyed? Okay, so why
that's what transforms his power into authority in a certain way, right? It's
obeyed.
It deserves and is obeyed.
It is obeyed voluntarily, and not obeyed voluntarily through
extrinsic motivations
because of what it is.
Yes.
Okay, so you obey it because the king has spoken it, not for some other reason.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a confusing. That's a confusing idea. You have to really kind of wrestle. Why would that be the case?
Yeah.
And the reason is obviously, I think, is that the ends that are being pursued by the monarch, so the ruler, and the people who are obeying him are the same.
Yes.
So that's one aspect.
Yes.
Okay, so there's no disjunction in ends.
Yes.
And then the other aspect is that the people who are obeying him trust.
Yes.
Okay, they love and trust the monarch. So they believe that the ruler is actually leading them closer to that
Yes.
shared end,
Yes.
right? That when that occurs, they will follow him, and they will follow him outside of what they already know. I mean, what I mean
Yes.
is they'll really obey him. We're not
Yes.
talking about
Yes.
we're not talking about some like obedience that isn't really obedience or something. Like they
Yes.
will courageously venture out into that which they don't understand
Yes.
because the leader, the statesman, is leading them out.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
And can I just comment
Yeah,
on that? I
please
think
do.
that is a really profound element, right? Is that the ends do converge, right? The ends of the ruled and the ruler, right? And when they're just, right, the ruler has a kind of knowledge, right, of what's just, right, so that anything he commands will not violate justice. But he has a knowledge of the good for that particular people at that particular time in that particular circumstance that exceeds their knowledge. So they need him, right?
Oh yeah, there has to be the
yes.
initiative from above.
Yes.
So we're not trying to. At no point here do we want to dispute the necessity of,
Yes.
of political power,
Yes.
political authority. It's absolutely
Yes,
necessary for human flourishing.
Exactly.
But the just form of power, authority, operates in certain forms.
Yes.
Okay, so if this is why friendship is so important. So if you think about the common good, this is a very confusing. The common good is a very, very confusing concept because it almost always in the discussions we have today, it almost always reduces to like conditions for flourishing, and then those
for individuals to become
and then those
fulfilled or
conditions
satisfied.
are always kind of reduced to, you know, whatever sort of material conditions or
exactly.
something like that, and it becomes a sort of greater good or a sort of some sort of notion like that. But I think that what we need to do instead is say, okay, the common good. Let's just say it's the common end first of all.
Yeah.
All right. Now the common end, very rudimentarily, we say happiness. Everybody desires to be happy.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone wants happiness. All right. But there's not a.
But what is that? Of course,
It's a pretty empty concept. Okay. So everyone desires happiness. So then the question is, okay, where do we find happiness? What do happy people look like? You know, and it's funny because I talk to my students about this.
Yeah.
And I'll just ask a simple question like, can you even conceive of happiness
Yeah.
that isn't a relationship?
Yeah.
Like when you think of a happy human being,
Yes.
it's always
Yeah.
a happy relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like a human being is someone who's happy because they have a friend who they
Yes.
love and who loves them,
Yes.
who has a wife
A
that they
family,
love
yeah.
and loves them, the
A
family that
community.
they love
Yeah,
them.
a church,
the
all that.
community. Like that is what makes people happy,
Yes.
right? So happiness. So we have this shared end, which is happiness. We're all aiming at it. Okay, that makes it common. But then it's even more profoundly common because it's only had when it's had together.
That's right.
So happiness is only had together. So sometimes people will frame the common good or present the common good in a negative way. And they'll say a common good or the common good is a good that can be shared without diminishing it. And that's true in a sort of like boring way.
Yeah.
Right. But the really meaningful thing is that it can only be had when it's had together.
Yeah.
Not that we can all have it and not compete with each other.
Right.
Right. I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, you can imagine things that are
I like the idea. So if we go with Aristotle's classical definition of happiness, right? Happiness is a rational activity, right? In accordance with virtue in a complete life, virtue in a complete life. It's a rational activity, right? And I think of the common good as joint activity, right? And so it's activity that you can only do, you might say, on a team, right? A quarterback without a team, right, can't be a quarterback. Right. If there's no line, he's going to literally be crushed every single time by a massive linebacker. Right. And he can't be good. He can't even attain his own good without the line. And the line, if there's no quarterback, what are they doing?
Right.
It's completely pointless.
Yeah. No,
so that idea of joint activity, joint rational activity
there's other
in
examples
accord with virtue.
You can use like an orchestra.
I like that one even better.
Similar
personally.
type of a thing, right? Where each of the instruments requires its integration into the whole in order. And it's not just. I mean, in order to be itself.
Yes.
I mean, what I mean is like the oboe
Yes.
is for the orchestra.
Yes.
So
exactly.
like practicing it by yourself in your room is just practicing it.
Yeah.
But you're practicing to do the actual thing, which is to be in the orchestra.
Yes. Which is the fullness, the fullness of it.
So the happiness is the social of a sharing in virtue.
Yes.
Okay. And in reason, really.
That's the core of it. The virtue is the core.
We share in virtue. I mean, we could talk about this all day, but we got to kind of, I think, cut to it, which is that if you think of, so we can talk about friendship then as being the experience of of happy people together.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We enjoy each other's virtue. We love each other for who each other is.
You make the person better.
I make you better. You make me better. I enjoy your good in and of itself. You enjoy my good in and of itself. And it's that experience of both loving and being loved. That reciprocal nature of it makes people happy. Okay. So if you imagine that, then a friendship as the core of the common good, friendship, then the way we want to think about this is that a friendship is experiencing the common good. Okay. It's like, so it's not. Sometimes people will want to say, oh, the common good is the political good that's had only at the like highest level, the level of the self-sufficient community or some such.
And we only understand it by like abstraction.
And what's going on with the friendship is like a private good or something. And that's just wrong. Okay. So like, that's just a mistaken way of understanding this. The friendship is enjoying the common good.
And we can experience that directly. We don't need abstraction to understand that.
No, like it is what the common good is. But what happens is that and this is a little complex, so bear with me. I think I can articulate.
Go for it.
Is that happiness? It's an essential aspect of happiness to desire deeper happiness. So happiness is the kind of thing that is never done. Okay, happiness is in pursuit of itself. All right, and this is where we'd say the final repose is in the vision of God, where happiness becomes complete. But between here and there, we're moving. The happier we are, the further we're moving into happiness. We want more happiness. And so what I'm getting at is that the friendship then, if you imagine two people, are experiencing the common good, but it's a sort of imperfect common good. And I don't mean imperfect in the sense of deficient. I mean imperfect in the way that a boy is an imperfect human. Like, because the relationship between a boy and a man. And like the
there's
boy,
somewhere to elevate him too.
He can become a more perfect, but there's nothing wrong with being a boy, right? There's nothing deficient about boyhood. Okay, so and it's exactly the relationship, the achievement of happiness at the level of friends is what opens them then to elevation. Okay, because they desire that relationship to be deepened. Okay, so what that means is that the good, this good that everyone pursues, the happiness, is a desire that impels expansion out of the small thing and integration into bigger groupings. Okay, because and this again is very practical. Like we can talk about this as a sort of abstraction. But we got very practical. Like friends need something to talk about. Friends need shared projects. Friends need shared loves that I can appreciate your contribution to it and you can appreciate mine. Like the more complex our world becomes, the richer our friendship becomes. So the more truth that's in it, the more beauty that's in it, the more people that are a part of it, right? So the more every friendship you have is like a different mode on friendship, a different turn of happiness, right? How you can be happy.
What you're reflecting on beautifully, I think, is the idea of love itself, right? I mean, whenever people bring up the word, it feels sentimental, right? But actually, everybody knows it's the deepest thing to think about. And so it's like the good is diffusive of itself. The love expands and is fruitful in itself, right? It wants to elevate, it wants to expand, it wants to become greater and greater. And so the more loves we share, the more levels we have, the greater this whole thing is growing. And of course, we're imitating, right? The God who is the creator of everything, who is ultimate love and ultimate creativity and fruitfulness.
That's exactly right. So the thing I want to, we'll talk about this first because I'm sort of trying to frame sort of like the matter before we just and put power on it. Okay. So
the friendships that are building.
If you
that's
think
what the
about
picture we
like
just had.
A married couple, right, who are married. And they are enjoying each other like, when they're newlyweds. I mean, it's a profoundly intimate friendship. But that friendship itself, in its very nature, creates a family. Right? And then that friendship becomes richer, deeper. But my relationship with my wife now, or a husband's relationship with his wife, is now she's also a mother. In fact, but she's not. Those aren't stacked associations. Right? It's not like here you're my wife, here my relationship with you qua wife, and then over here my relationship qua mother.
It's not compartmentalized. It's internal.
That's not right. It's
growth.
Exactly qua wife.
Organic.
That is qua mother of my children. Right? Like the wife is perfected in motherhood. Okay, so So there's an elevation
Yes.
into more complex order.
Yes.
And the common good that's had at the smallest level
Mhm.
is being perfected
Yes.
as it is integrated into more complex
Yes.
order.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So once you have that sort of a framework, then you
Yes.
can understand how royal power works.
Yes. Yes.
Because then you can say, oh, when an authority, when
Mhm.
someone kind of calls people to a higher level of order,
Yes.
they're clamoring for it.
Yeah. People want
Like
it.
happy
It's already
people who are
desired.
enjoying the common good,
Yes.
they desire
Yes.
that integration.
Mhm.
And so that integration to a higher level of order. And so the one who brings it to them,
Mhm.
they obey.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can see then how the common good, how it's essential to get this idea of the common good right.
Yes.
Because if you don't have that, if you want to just have the common good as some sort of abstract thing that happens at like the political level, it's very confusing to me.
Yeah.
Right. Because I have a hard time visualizing it. Like I can't imagine what's being referred to.
Yeah.
Because it feels
It's
like
a pure abstraction.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're talking about friends and what they do together in shared projects, I think it's so important and I don't want to go too far off the theoretical, but it's when we want to actually make our society better. People often ask us at New Polity, so what are we supposed to do now? They always ask us that question. And when we give the answer, it might sound sentimental, right?
Yeah.
But it actually isn't at all. It's the exact opposite, right? And we have to have this bigger theoretical framework because I think, convince ourselves and the people around us that this works. This is efficacious. The friendship that we have here and the friendships that are building out, this actually does work, and it is the way God designed it to be, right? We don't have to wait for, the administrative state to like do it for us, right?
No, in fact, they'll just destroy it.
Yeah, and so
they don't care about your friendship.
Exactly.
Your friendship is actually, I think we'll get to later. Your friendship is a problem for them.
Exactly. It's got to exclude that.
It has to eliminate it. That's right.
And so what I'm saying is that is, it feels like, no, okay, I'll just kind of live in my little hobbit hole over here, right? And everything else will kind of go, and maybe I'll get through my life and it'll, no, this is the power that God gave us. This friendship and this love and these levels that they perfect. God built everything into things so that this would be the most powerful thing that imitates him, who's the perfect power and perfect authority.
We know this from the biblical narrative, right? I mean, in Genesis, the human beings begin as a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And what are we going to say? That was insufficient?
Yeah.
Oh, it was deficient. It hadn't achieved self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
It's like, no, actually Adam and Eve were happy.
Right.
Like,
Right.
And that happiness was necessarily expansive, like have dominion, subdue, order, reproduce, multiply, right? Like that happiness wasn't content where it was, right? Because it's capable of deepening, but it's not deficient, right? Okay, so that is the essential thing to see here. That one of the essential things is that the elevation, if we use that word,
I like that,
of friendship into higher orders, right? Doesn't leave the friendship behind, right? It
makes it grow even more. It expands even more.
It's precisely the elevation of the friendship.
Yes.
Right. And nothing else, right? Like that's what it is.
So it sounds like from that point of view that it's like when you say raise up to another level of order, right? So then we're starting to abstract again. So you mean like associations, right? Families relating to families, parishes relating to families.
So there's different kinds of friendships, different associations, different goods.
Social levels, is that what you're talking about?
Available at levels of order, right? So I mean, this is.
So it's is it? Let me just jump in. It's the kinds of things and the goods available. It's not just an expansion of more and more and more people, of getting bigger and bigger numbers of people, because that's what I first think of it sort of quantitatively. Like more and more friends.
Order,
right?
in the sense of
then we just want one world government then that has all the maximal number of friends.
Order in the sense of complexity, of content.
Okay.
Right, and the ordering of different participations towards higher objectives.
Yeah. So you gave me an example with wife and mother. Mm-hmm. That was the example of this. This is kind of blueprint. Can you give me a few just more illustrations of the complexification has to do not with just adding more and more people?
Sure. Right? So let's think about something like music.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we say music is a profound human good, I mean, right?
Absolutely.
To enjoy music is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Yeah. But when you enjoy music with your family, I know you guys are into music.
Yeah.
and you're enjoying the music in your family,
Mm-hmm.
Where's that music coming from?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't the music something that a higher level of order
Yeah.
and a whole tradition?
Yeah.
I mean, you and Star can't compose all that,
No.
write it all,
Mhm.
understand it. You were taught it.
Yes. Right.
You were taught it, and
Yes.
and really, what that music is a good,
Yeah.
like a true human good.
It's a great example.
That is only available at a higher level of social order.
Yes.
Right.
And social order, maybe I could say this, because to be able to sing Gregorian chant, right, takes some amount of training. It doesn't take expertise.
Mm-hmm.
It does not take expertise. I want everybody out there to know that. But it takes some effort, right? It takes some, you have to practice, you have to learn how the notation works and all that. But once you get it and you get inside of it, right, you are literally singing, I feel like this when I sing it, like the greatest melodies I've ever experienced, right? And there's a lot of great melodies out there.
Right.
But I couldn't get that. And how do you give that to a whole parish? It's really hard. We tried to start a choir. We did for a while, and it's still going, right? But it's really hard when you do not have a tradition that has those goods already in there. We take it for granted.
Right.
But there's a lot of training, effort. Yeah, people have to keep the library right. People have to organize everything, manage all these events. You need little kids that get in it. I mean, this kind of order is to bring about the good of shared music. I see what you mean now. I think that's a really helpful
so you
illustration.
have. I mean, this is
Not necessarily more people, but more complex.
Although
goods
it does end up with,
to a degree.
There is more
right.
people,
yes,
because you have like that good, that social good, which is music, only gets to your family because you guys have contact, intimate contact with those outside your family.
Yes.
So your friendship isn't insular; it's now expanded.
Somebody kept that tradition and handed it on to us,
and they're your friends.
Yes, absolutely.
But they're a different kind of friendship than the friendship you have with your wife. So the family has a certain mode of friendship.
Okay.
But then there are modes of friendship that are between families that are,
I'm getting it now.
And each one of those is a different, like I'm saying, a different like version of happiness.
Yes.
Do you
They're
see what I'm
different.
saying?
Maybe I could say this back to the definition of rational activity in accord with complete virtue and complete life. Joint rational activity. Right, according to complete virtue. So now there's lots of different joints because there's lots of different joints. There's lots of different joint activities, which are individuated by the types of goals that are pursued. So football, that's a joint activity. Music, a joint activity. Right, doing family, joint activity. Going camping with other people, joint activity. Right, fishing, joint.
Philosophizing. I mean, this is the thing: is that conversation itself. So we're describing this, and it feels like we're starting at the bottom and sort of building, which we are. But I don't want people to imagine that I think a family exists in isolation, and then joins in some sort of like social contract. I'm trying to explain how it is that the family is perfected into the higher levels.
Yes, to illustrate the notion of elevation.
Elevation. Yes. So you. I mean, what Aristotle will say, and Thomas agrees with him just directly, is that friends, the sort of paradigm occupation of friends is conversation. Right? They talk to each other.
Yes.
And then what do they discuss?
Yes.
They discuss the just and the unjust, the true and the false, the good and
good,
the evil.
true, beautiful.
Right. They discuss reality.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they say, and out of those conversations grows households and cities. Right. So that's a very important, a very important move.
Yes.
Right. So that we talk about things, and as we talk, we build a more complex world, like a social world. Like we are educated, and when we come to be in a family, and we come to be in a community, we come to be in a city, we are raised up into it. We are initiated into
complex order,
a complex discursive truth order.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And that complexity of the world that we're receiving is a complexity that as it becomes more truthful, more beautiful, more that the deeper the happiness that we can share within it, the deeper the common good is there.
Yeah.
Okay, so our friendships become ever deeper in that discursive reality.
That's
right?
good. So that illustrated it really well for me. I think that makes more sense. There's more concrete imagery to me.
Right.
And so I think our question, remember, was the regime form.
Yeah.
Right. And so we were talking about like kind of the nature of the form matter composite,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like I could say these additional modes of friendship are like forms that are ever complexifying,
Right.
This matter, and this matter takes on a more beautiful hues, different shapes, right? It's sort of like all of its potentials are being actualized in different directions all at the same time. And so then when we talk about a regime form, right, we are not excluding any of that. We're including all that. And so
That's
we
right.
feel like what's going on in the modern tradition is it forgets about this reality of the nature of being human in society.
That's right.
Right? That there's all these nodes and forms that are actualizing these potentialities in us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they think, no, there's just like people and they're kind of just like, they're like clay.
Yeah.
Right? And then we have all these super complex forms and we're just kind of like print this
Right.
form onto this clay.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's overly simple.
Yeah.
And
So I think let's talk about authority a little
Yes.
bit within this context then. So I think a way of imagining it might be something like you have two villages, okay? Two villages that are just and happy, all right? So groups of friends that have achieved the level of order, which is the village level, let's say. I mean, this feels silly to say, but okay.
Yeah.
But they're relatively lonely, okay?
Yeah.
Like they're relatively unknown to each other.
Yeah.
Okay. Now imagine then, but each one is having this a discourse on these the true and the good, the true and the beautiful,
And they're healthy.
And they're healthy
to a relative degree. Yeah.
Okay. So what that means, part of what that means is that they are yearning for higher order, right? They're yearning for more.
Yes.
That's part of what this happiness means.
Yes.
And so if you can then imagine, okay, an authority coming, a king, okay, a king who both villages are recognized as their ruler, okay, their monarch,
Yes.
right, their king, and then he then speaks a law into their discourse. All right, so he articulates a rational precept for the common good.
Yeah.
Okay, a rational ordinance for the common good.
Yes.
Which within the village they're having this discourse. Here is you guys being here. I'm going to give you something.
Them in what they were doing.
But because he becomes a third that unites the two.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is that if that law is spoken into both villages, then their discourses now on the true, the good, and the beautiful now include the law of the king as if it were native.
Yeah.
That's a really, really important thing. It
becomes internalized.
Right? Yeah. It becomes, I accept the truth that you're telling me as if it is something I came up with myself.
Yeah. It's like when we read an insight, that's what we say. We're like, oh, that's what I was saying. That's what I wanted to say.
And that's a crucial thing because it has to be a law, St. Thomas tells us, is an external principle of human action. And human action is voluntary and rational. Right? So that means we have to act upon the law freely and as if it's a conclusion of our own reason.
Yeah. So it begins external, but it becomes internalized and interior.
Now you have into the discourses that these villages are having now includes something that unites them. You see, and so their discourses, they grow into each other through authority.
Yeah.
Okay. So authority. So if you think about it,
it unites and elevates.
It unites and elevates. So if you want to say, what does authority do? What authority does is lead the people deeper into the common good. And the way in which it does that is by uniting instances of the common good into higher level orders of the common good.
Yes.
All right. And so the pursuit of the common good is the pursuit of the integration of common goods into a higher common good.
And can I say what that does? What that does is, because we were talking before about this, is the common good, right, is a kind of placeholder in a certain way. It's like we desire this common good, but then how we populate that is all these things that we experience. And when you're brought in, and in this scenario, this philosopher scenario you brought up, right, the common good now becomes more known because it's partly known for all of us, that all these stuff is partly known, and we want a comprehensive knowledge of it.
Right.
Right. And so when a king does this right thing, he gives us more comprehensive knowledge than we already had, and we already wanted comprehensive knowledge. And so it's always open, right, until it's ultimately
open. It's open, and it's open to the unknown. So what I don't want to imagine,
it's not closed.
I don't want to imagine that I'm saying that the king tells these people things they already know.
Yeah.
Like it's exactly that he's surprising them.
Yes.
Right. And
it's what we always wanted to know. That's what it is.
Right.
It answers to a pre-existent
desire.
desire.
Why this authority is not, we're not talking about merely some sort of like bottom up bubbling. I mean, like we're saying that it's exactly what's already in act is it has potentials.
Yes.
And it wants those to be activated.
Yes.
And so when something comes to activate, it responds to
Yes.
it. Okay. The people.
I'm glad you said that it's not merely bottom up, because I think a lot of people that hear new polity,
I know that
fellows
they just
talking,
don't understand.
They always think that we're just like the mere kind of hobbits.
They don't understand
slowly everything's going to become the Shire. That's not what we're saying.
No, like
right?
It has to. That initiative from above must occur. I mean, and we know this.
And that elevated Sam. I love what Tolkien says about that. Sam would have just been like this provincial-minded hobbit that was backwoods,
yeah.
But he encountered Frodo, who encountered the elves and Bilbo, right? And that elevated Frodo in a way, elevated Sam until they needed each other to complete the saving of the world, right? So like the Shire in a certain way had to be elevated, but it was ready. It was disposed. Sam and the hobbits had potential that could do that, but they had to encounter other stuff.
Yeah. So what we're getting at is
Tolkien is wise.
And also that being called a hobbit isn't an insult.
No, it's absolutely
okay, so
great. No, not at all. It's a compliment to me.
Well, I mean, given what happens in the novel.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want to.
So sorry. Let me jump. Sorry to interrupt again. So what I liked about that comment was you said that authority has this crucial role of initiating. It's not just bottom up, everything sort of bubbles up naturally, and higher levels sort of emerge. That's the key word in metaphysics these days.
Right.
Emergent phenomena. No,
no,
it is elevated by the action of the higher, raising us up. That is the metaphysical principle of subsidiarity.
That's right.
Right there.
That is right. So when we talk about subsidiarity, we're talking about an anthropology and a metaphysics. We're not talking about a policy recommendation.
No. And it seems like that is one of the errors that we were talking about seems to fall into.
Right. Yeah. So
jump me back in. So
where are we going? So monarchy, monarchical rule, just rule. Okay. So one of the things though that is so important to see is that friendship then is the precondition for monarchical rule, just rule. So friendship works, or monarchical rule works where there are friends.
Yes, that's the matter for that form to be that's disposed to it.
And what it produces is a society of friendships and of friendship.
Yes.
So a happy society is a society of friends.
Yes.
Who are engaged in can be very complex and beautiful acts together.
Yes.
In a complex way.
Yeah.
Okay, now the other thing that we can see here, I think, is that in this form, the administration and the population are always tending towards identity. So this is when he says
converging on the goal.
When Aristotle says things like in a monarchy, the people protect the king rather than But the point is that in other places this is developed by Plato too, and that the people the people are the administration. I mean, what I mean is that like the people's lives is the law.
Yes.
Okay. So the law is given from above, like we were saying, but then it's efficacious precisely because it is internalized.
Yes.
And the people become the living law.
Yes.
Okay. The living law of their polity.
Yes.
So so there is extrinsic things like because it's imperfect.
Yeah.
So and because it's always pursuing perfection, there will always be extrinsic things. There will always be extrinsic law.
Things that it can complete and raise it up more.
But those are all the places within which perfection is being pursued.
Yes.
Okay. So you start out trying to explain something to each other, but eventually we come to the point where we both know it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the goal.
Yeah.
Right. Like the goal of instruction is for someone to be instructed.
Yes.
So you don't imagine then law as some sort of static, always foreign propositional thing that the conformity of all people to this static list of propositions is what creates unity.
Yeah.
That's not it at all.
Right.
That the law is forming the people into the unity.
Yes.
Right. And in their virtue then that is specific to them, the form that virtue has for them, that is the basis of their actual unity.
Yeah.
All right. So there is then in a monarchical form, there is what we might think of as sort of administration, but you have to, those things are always the like work in progress areas.
Yeah.
I mean, what I mean is that is like it's
not already being done.
So if
naturally.
you imagine, like I was saying, that there's these villages, right? And they're being united, and then there's
Yeah.
cities, and they're being ever united, and our families are being ever tighter united. So all of it's happening, and the complex unity,
Yeah.
the building of unity is not just stacking,
No.
right? It's like it's
it's
the
a
whole
very
thing,
complicated
the whole
synergy from all
thing is
different
becoming
angles.
deeper,
Yes.
right? Within that, then whole thing, there are extrinsic pieces, or there's extrinsic instruction, there's
Yeah.
extrinsic law, there's
Yeah.
extrinsic, right? And and that's necessary,
Yeah.
right? But it always is aiming past itself into its internalization in harmony,
Yeah.
peace, and the common
Yeah.
good, happiness. Okay, so you have then, so one way of thinking about it, the way I've been thinking about it lately is thinking
Yeah.
about how between these friendships, so these realizations of the common good, these instances, there's sort of gaps
Yes.
between them,
Yeah.
and they're between their discourses, and the authorities at different levels are seeking to close those gaps, and the way in which they do so is with law and administration.
Yes.
So there's a place for those
Yes.
kinds of things.
Yes.
But that's the closing of the gaps.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so that then so maybe trying to think if that's enough for us to shift gears.
Yeah.
Because you can start to take the form.
Yeah.
So when
maybe I could say something there, like the closing of the gaps idea, that was a really important part of the paper that you read at that conference at
Right.
COA, and so the idea there is back to what we were saying of there's friendships are different kinds, there's different modes. It's not just adding people like the simple quantitative way I was thinking, but these different ways of pursuing different aspects of the common good that then emerge right from the participation and teamwork at different levels. Sometimes somebody suggests it like I received Gregorian chant, right from Nick Botkins, right? So I received it I never had it before that, and so that filled a gap for me. I even though I was a trained musician, I never had the experience of that incredibly important part of our musical tradition. So those kinds of goods were not available to me before then. So that filled a gap. And that's what you mean by fill the gaps, is these different opportunities. Is that what you're saying?
That's one aspect of it.
Okay.
But maybe if I can make it more simple.
Okay.
I'd say there's actually gaps like between families, say.
Yeah.
All right. There's actual gap. And so how do we unite families? How do we close the gap? Oh, by instituting a village. Okay, so we need a village, like we need to become a village.
When you say a gap, is what you mean is there's not a joint activity that will bring them together as necessary parts.
As friends, as true friends, like,
okay.
right, where we might have goodwill towards each other, but we're not engaged.
There's no joint activity to share.
That's right, right.
Okay.
No communication at that level, right?
Okay.
So, a way I think of it, and maybe this is too abstract or weird, but I think of it as these conversations that are going on that are constituting these social wholes, right, social realities.
Yeah.
And that there's different conversations going on, and they haven't started talking to each other yet.
Yeah.
Right. And that the bridging of those gaps is what authority needs to do.
Yeah.
But the reason why I'm kind of harping on this is because this is where you get the idea of coercion. Okay, because, and this is important, right? Because
I see where you're headed. Yeah.
There is so these gaps, like Plato talks about basically, and I can explain why I say this, but take my word for it. It's something like, this is the place where criminals are.
Yeah.
These gaps.
Yeah.
Okay. So who are criminals? Criminals are people who have separated their private good from the public or the common good.
They're antisocial.
Right. They've separated those things. And so they're operating no one in this Plato says this, Augustine says this, no criminal is a criminal at home. He says.
Right.
Okay, so like he has the places where he is living the common good, and then he ventures out into those gaps and is a criminal. Yeah. Okay, and those because out in those places he's separated. He doesn't have the same end as the authority. Right. So he's not obedient to the authority, and so there are criminals out there, and they have to be. The kind of the field has to be cleared in order for the gaps to be closed.
Yes.
All right. So like because you think about what happens when you.
So the criminal's like a wedge, and people are trying to come together.
So
and you got to remove the wedge so that things can combine.
Why don't you? Yeah. Right. Like why? Okay. So like venturing out, and I mean, like making up a lexicon here. Maybe it's annoying, but like you have the inside. Right, which is like your family or your circle of friends, and the inside you're safe, and you're happy, right, truly happy, and the outside you want to go there,
Yeah.
but it's a little scary.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you don't really know what's there.
Right.
And then and you need a leader. That's why the leader comes and this is why like Thomas and these guys, Aristotle, Thomas will talk about how friendship, it has intrinsic to it is valor,
Yeah.
courage.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You're willing to venture out into that which you don't know.
Absolutely.
Right. And but what's out there is actually dangerous. Right? There's actually criminals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I want people to really imagine what I'm saying. Like, the inside is your friends.
Yeah.
Whether we aren't criminals.
Yeah.
But where the places where we're not, there are people who are not ordered towards the same end.
Yeah.
Okay. So that space has to be cleared, cleared of the criminals.
Yeah.
And coercion is the way you get rid of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So and that coercive aspect, hopefully, you drive them back into the communities of the common good.
Yeah.
And they join
Right.
up with it, or you destroy them, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a form of warfare, and
Yes.
they must be eliminated.
Yes.
But what's important, I think, to see is that the coercion then that the monarch or the ruler is exhibiting or is displaying, is doing, is not the essence of his rule.
Right.
Right. Like, in fact, it actually doesn't really have anything to do with his power,
Yeah.
because when you say he's powerful, right, what does that mean? Well, it means he can call out the courageous into the gaps,
Yes.
and they will come.
Yes.
Right. His power,
And they will close it and they will unite
his power
people.
is not like saying his power is coercion is nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, it actually doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking about him physically with
Force.
a sword.
All you mean is mere force.
But all you would mean is like the only way it would make sense is if you're talking about one guy.
Yeah.
Like the king with a
Yeah.
sword.
Yeah.
Because what makes him powerful is that people, like an army, follows him.
Yes. Yes.
And he's not coercing the army.
Yeah. It's his
Otherwise,
word. His word is
It's just
powerful.
like that's an infinite
Yeah.
regress problem,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
like at some point, people are doing what he says.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you have, you know, there's my point is his power is always the calling of the friends, the people
Yes,
out
into the gaps. Yes.
to contend with the enemies.
And they trust that if they do that, then there's going to be, as it were, it's going to make them drawn together. It's going to be that they're going to get more of those nodes of friendship. They're going to have a greater, better, happier existence if they obey this guy that they trust. So this is the reason why
Aristotle says things like there's these lines that are really important, but often just get passed over. And he says, you know, the city has coercive power to coerce those who paternal authority is not enough.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, the people in the gaps who aren't obeying their fathers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because everybody else.
Right.
Like
or their father's already a criminal in the gap.
Yeah,
and they obey him.
right.
Yeah.
But you have, those are the people that need to be integrated in. Yeah. Okay, so there's a degree of coercion, but again, the coercion is not the essence of his power.
Right.
It's the exception.
Right.
And
so this is where we see a problem, right? This is that's where you're headed, I think, right?
And he's actually not a king.
Yes.
To the people he's coercing.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if you remember, part of the definition of monarchy was that it was
voluntary.
voluntary.
Yes.
And so when he's and part of the definition of law that we talked about was that it's an external principle of human action. Right. But when the polity enforces its law coercively against criminals.
Yeah.
Right. It's their law, but it's not the criminal's law.
Right.
Right, like the criminal does not obey it voluntarily in a human manner. He does not take it into his own reasoning as if it were native to him.
Yeah,
right. It's foreign to him. Yes. It's an obstacle.
Yes,
he does
it's
not.
Opposed to his will.
It's opposed to his will.
Yeah,
right. And so it's not even a law, properly speaking.
Right.
To him.
No.
Right. Within
it's an obstacle to his will.
And the guy who's enforcing it isn't his king.
No. Right, because he's not trusted and he doesn't think that he's going to let him pursue his
good. The power that's being displayed against the criminal is exactly not royal power.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it is royal power to the people for whom he's their king.
Yes.
Because he's their war leader.
Yeah. That's what we said before. The powerful to one is not power to another.
But it's not, exactly. Yeah. So his efficacy over the criminal is the ability to call out the courageous against the criminal.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is incredibly. It's very important to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, to see these forms, I think. Okay, so
we have a place for coercion. I think that's a really important thing. There's a place for it within this. It's absolutely necessary for the common good to be able to be elevated.
And, you know, we've made this. I've made this on that. I've tried to make a schematic here that's simple.
Yes,
fairly simple, but you have to really make it more complex because, like we were saying, that the movement into higher order is something that occurs down and throughout the whole.
Yes.
Right? Like we have coercion in our own families.
Yes.
Exactly because us as the kings of our families are
Yes.
doing the same thing with our children.
Yes.
We are elevating them
Yes.
and closing the gaps.
Yes.
Right?
And actually, you know when you feel the most power, this is for me anyway, when I feel the most powerless, right, is when I can't persuade, right, to obey voluntarily. That's when you feel not powerful
Obviously.
at all. It's the most frustrating thing because you're
Obviously.
saying something completely obvious.
I just find it to be so obvious that I get annoyed having to repeat it.
Yes.
That the reality of coercion is evidence of powerlessness, not power.
Exactly.
Okay. So like when you have to coerce, that is because you don't have power over the person.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So
it's necessarily second best. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in and of itself, it does nothing.
Yeah.
In and of itself, it does nothing but clear the space of problem people.
Yeah.
Right. In order for coercion to lead them into unity in the community, it has to be met with some degree of the pursuit of the common good in them, which is always there because they're human beings.
Yeah.
Right. But even to the extent that coercion can do that, it's in spite of itself.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. Now, this is the royal. We're talking. This is the just regime. So this is the reason why I think St. Thomas can say, okay, monarchy is the best form. All right, but then more forcefully, other places he goes, actually the mixed regime is the best form, where you have a one who rules through virtue, who then there are below him the great ones who rule through virtue, then. But then it's actually the multitude that both is available to rule and chooses the rulers. That's what he says.
Yeah. So
and it's not some sort of democracy.
That's amazing.
What we're actually talking about is that virtuous people, happy people, right? They're looking for people to lead them out and lead them up.
Yes.
And the more virtuous are impelled to do so.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a...
Yes.
You see what
I
I'm
see
saying?
what exactly.
So you have the kings and the aristocrats and are the form that a virtuous, a just society takes.
Yes.
Right.
The just society is a society of little kings.
Kings all the way down.
Exactly. Kings all the way down. Right. And an exact opposite's the case of a tyranny. Right.
Yes. So,
and that's back to the idea of in the pre-modern era, right? A just society is one where the people are just.
That's right.
Whereas in what Anscombe says in a different place is like when the modern philosophical tradition abandons the old Platonic view of justice, where they say no, the justice of a society is how well it's arranged, right? How the pieces and parts are working together, the Constitution. Right. So I don't know. Do you want to take a transition? And
I think we should move to tyranny here.
Okay.
I mean, I know we've talked for a long time, but so if the way I want to describe this is if we think of royal power, just power as closing the gaps, right? Then what tyrannical power is, or what the tyrannical tyranny does, is sort of occupy those gaps and then tries to expand them, right? So it's doing it's wanting to do the opposite thing.
Yes.
Okay, so if you have families, so we talked about how you have families that then seek to be united.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the case. So you imagine a bunch of families that want, but there's gaps between them, and so there's an opportunity for a unjust power to occupy that space, and so the fear that those families naturally have to that which is beyond them, right, becomes the leverage that the thing that's out there has over them.
Yes.
Okay, so basically what we're talking about is the criminals that are in the gaps becoming a sort of syndicate.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, but they're still in the gaps.
Yes.
And this is the way
they offer protection to the people who are fearing things.
Yeah, right. So that's part of the way that it'll work is that
and so they become like a ruler.
So, it's like a parody of one.
Yes, exactly.
Right? So what they, and this is the reason why the classics talk about when they talk about being guarded by their fellow citizens as a king, or against their fellow citizens. Well, who's doing the guarding? Mercenaries.
Yes.
Right. And what Plato tells us is that the mercenaries, a tyrant's mercenaries, are merely the criminals of a just regime. So there's criminals in the gaps, and they become professionalized under a tyrant, right? And they become his administration.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. All right.
Yes.
So he has it's a criminal organization. So Now
And
that,
I was going to say the gaps. I just want to return to that for a
Yeah.
second because for us, because I read that paper, there's a few maybe illustrations. So we kind of tried to illustrate a little bit.
Yeah.
So when you say a gap, right, you mean a social gap. So there's ways in which people could relate that would then further the common good,
Right.
but nobody's in them. So that
Yep.
yet these people are willing to do certain things. So if a guy comes and he manipulates, right, these two groups to get some resource to then get it to enrich himself, he's been in a gap in which these people could have participated in a gift economy to help each other
Right.
out, but instead it's this other kind of thing that this guy got for his own benefit.
Right.
So you mean a social gap means a potential relationship between people or groups that could bring about a common good, but they haven't been connected yet.
and that is exactly the
Is that a good-
preconditions
okay.
for criminal activity.
Yes.
What I mean is that
Because you can utilize
it's
the social.
parasitic. It's
Yes.
always parasitic on the good.
Yeah.
Right. So it needs that space between where the people are sort of looking at it and wanting to venture into it. Okay?
It needs people to exploit or people to alienate.
So yeah, you
right
have
under false promises.
So if you think about, okay, so again, if you think about a family, right? Like, okay, with the father who's the king of his family,
yeah,
and he's responsible for the common good
yeah,
that is his family,
Yeah.
the happiness of the family, the common good. And what he wants to do, of course, is integrate into higher levels of order. But what's actually out there is a bunch of criminals.
yeah,
Okay, and he perceives this.
Yes.
These
Yes.
guys are scary.
yes,
All right, now what does he do? Right? It's like, well, if he ventures out there, it's either to fight them,
yes,
all right, or it's to make deals with them.
yes.
All right, and so
To get
you
something
have
he needs.
to get something that he thinks will contribute to the good, the prospering of his family. So if he ventures out into there, he can haggle. But before that,
Yeah.
what the classics say is that it's essential that the tyrannical regime and often there's a little often there's like a trajectory. You go
Yeah.
oligarchy, democracy,
Yeah.
demagoguery,
Yeah.
and tyranny.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so of like
De-evolution.
the way in which it gets
Yeah.
worse and worse
Yeah.
and worse, and that the oligarchs say, so the guy is willing. What I'm trying to say is the father will if there is a king who will
Yes.
lead him and the other men of goodwill,
Yes.
a leader,
Yes.
they will war against the tyrants.
Yes.
Okay. If that's lacking, so they don't have
Yeah.
that leadership,
They don't have enough.
then they don't have the organization that they
Yeah.
need, and so
Yes.
they end up making deals with them. And this is
Yes.
the reason why. The classics say, like, the first thing that you have to do, that the tyrants, the
Yes.
oligarchs have to do, is eliminate every man of superior virtue.
Yeah.
All right, you ostracize them, you get
Right.
rid of them.
Right.
You have to, because every
It's like if you read just those portions of Plato, then you
Yeah.
could like construct the prince.
yeah,
Right? If you just read those parts, then
I know.
instead
Well,
of
that's all they
the
did.
word tyrant, you would put the word prince.
that's all Machiavelli did.
right?
know.
And so, anyways.
Yeah, so you have to get rid of these men of superior virtue. That's
Yeah.
the first thing you do. So
Yes.
what the point is, there's no alternative leadership in those gaps that we're
Yes.
talking about.
Yes. There
Right.
can be no real hero.
Yeah. So then the guys go out there and make deals, all right, in order to bring goods home.
Yeah.
And what happens then is that they're willing to function
Yeah.
in this new, now we can start talking about like a public space, right?
Yes.
Like they're willing to function out there
Yes.
in a mode that's other than their personhood
Yes.
and their
Yes.
who they are
Yes.
among their friends.
Yes.
Right? They're willing.
And that gap becomes expanded because the tyrant or the person who's exploiting it, the criminal, right, benefits from that for themselves. So they expand society to just be the gap, and then real
They
society,
push-
real human society, is on the margins and out there.
But with the way they
right? And
organize
but you
it-
have to have that to a certain degree, or there's no gap, right?
Yes. Yes.
But they want the gap to be extended because that's where they exercise efficacious power.
And their efficacious power is exactly this what we would think of as sort of administration.
Yes.
So and the classics are very clear on this. It's like the first thing the oligarchs do is like introduce property requirements and introduce different offices and introduce, and all of a sudden we have like bureaucratic
They
kind
build
of.
what we
they
they build
build-
what we call a regime in a negative sense of that word.
They build an administration,
apparatus,
that
a machine.
that is always military-ish.
Yes.
It is at its heart mercenary.
It's a force machine.
Yeah, and you when the people venture out into it to interact with it, to make deals with it, the way in which they get the goods that they can bring home is by conforming to that apparatus and
Yes.
becoming a part of it.
Yes.
Right? I mean, but only out there.
Yes.
Not in here.
Yes.
And so you have this very strange situation where you have the pursuit of a private good, now we can start talking about that,
Yes.
outside
Yeah.
for a common good inside,
Yes.
which is like an inversion of the monarchical,
Yeah.
right? So you go,
Society's been inverted.
you go out into what should be a higher level of order.
Yes.
And there you're selfish,
Yeah.
right? But you're selfish so that you can serve
Yes.
this common good at
Yes.
home, which is your
Yes.
friends, your family.
Yeah.
Right. And that is a form of alienation where
Yes.
where one person is turned against himself.
Yes.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I completely see.
And
It's the
so-
exact opposite of subsidiarity. Subsidiarity is you go out into this space where all these shared nodes we were talking about, types of friendship, build
Right.
people up, and there's opportunities to have greater goods. And now we're talking about a space which is neutral, quote, right, where you go out to get something for yourself, and actually it's bringing you down to a certain degree, but you're sort of slowing down the process, right, of yourself going down.
Well, you have
right?
to because I mean it's a tragedy we're
Yes,
talking about.
that's what I'm saying.
Because
To survive longer, you have to contribute to this tyrannical
contribute
regime.
to preserve the good of your family, which is your obligation as a
yes,
king.
yeah.
You end up building, participating in, and building the mechanism,
Yes.
making it ever stronger. That
Hence your
that
alienation.
will never allow that good
Yes.
to be elevated beyond itself.
Yes.
And in fact,
Yes.
as it gets stronger, as this regime gets stronger, threatens your good immediately.
Yes,
right?
which reduces your ability to pursue the common good until
Exactly.
it becomes pure mere survival.
So what happens is that you become vicious. I mean, this is the what it means to build vices. I mean, you become turned against yourself, right? And your ends are incoherent, and you're behaving in ways, and you become increasingly disordered morally, right? I mean, that what happens then is that regime of the gaps. The tyrannical regime then like you were saying, wants to expand.
Yes.
Right. They want to expand ever more. Well, where do they have space to expand? Well, there's all these families.
Yes.
Right. That are friends with each other. And it's like, well, if we can pry them apart, we can get in there.
Yes.
Right. And so this is the move, the classics will say the move into democracy.
Yeah.
Right. Which is the
That
move,
kind. Yeah.
the move into the expansion of this sort of criminal regime into the interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
And this is why, like, Plato just comes out and says that the move into democracy is a form of patricide.
Yeah.
Where the now
Destroyed the family.
individualist,
Yeah.
the now individualist kills his own family.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And turns on his own.
Yeah.
The
Now it's the dog eat dog world. Now it's the world
everywhere.
all against all.
Now it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So now your only friend is yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
So this is why these guys will say a perfectly tyrannical world is one completely devoid of friendship.
Yeah.
But the point is that was always the case.
Yeah.
Like tyranny only operates where there is not friendship, just like how royal power only operates where there is friendship.
Yeah.
And this is very practical again. Like, why does tyrannical power only operate where there isn't friendship? Well, I mean, because first of all, people will fight to protect their friends.
Yeah.
And people will not sacrifice their friend for the end of an unjust regime.
Right.
Okay. And this is really an important an important thing, right? So and both Aristotle, Plato, they talk about this. Thomas talks directly about this, right? That you don't. So I mean, an obvious example would be like for a father to send his son to fight in a war for an unjust regime is a wicked thing for him to do.
Yeah.
Right. Like what he wrote, what would be the just thing is for him and his friends to send their sons to fight the unjust regime. Right. I mean, that's the just thing to do. So you don't, and you would not now if, and this is a point of confusion, right? Because what does that mean? Does that mean the father only fights like the good of the family trumps the political good? Absolutely not. The point is that the highest level at which the common good is had is the level that you fight for. So that's the reason why if you have a just city and the family then has been elevated into this just city, then it's not just appropriate, it's a matter of justice that the families are willing to fight for the city and are willing to sacrifice themselves for the good of the whole, because that is precisely them.
Yes.
Right? They've been elevated into that.
Yeah.
So it's still you're still fighting for your friends.
Yes.
It doesn't matter where you are.
Right.
And so as the level of achieved common good is like pushed down, the point at which you're willing to sacrifice becomes smaller.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So Yeah,
You're necessarily becoming more and more
your
selfish.
family
Yeah.
when the state shows up.
Yeah.
You don't go,
Yeah.
oh well, a higher level of political good wants to kill
Right.
my children. I guess
Right.
I'll let them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's
Totally.
absurd.
Absolutely.
Right? So of course, people talk that way.
I know.
People talk that way. I mean, it's very weird. It's hard for me to understand what they're talking about. But okay, so what happens then? We're talking about this expansion of the tyrannical regime, the mercenary regime, further and further, criminal regime further, to the point where I mean, hopefully you're seeing that.
Yeah.
What's actually happening is that all the people, to the extent that they go out and make deals with this regime and operate within its parameters, they are the mercenaries, right? Out there to each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So when you say the citizens it's against the citizens, like the regime is against the citizens, that's not because there's like some foreigners.
Yes.
It's them.
Yeah.
Right. But they aren't citizens, properly speaking, when they are staffing the apparatus against each other.
Right.
Do you see?
Yeah.
Okay. So, So you have the what ends up happening, what Plato says, and Aristotle basically follows him, is that once you get this individualist society where they've turned against the family, is that it inevitably turns into a demagogue. Right? There's a demagogue that emerges who's just the best. What Plato says is he's just the best flatterer.
Yeah.
Right. He just promises the most goods. He's just the best,
the most attracactive.
Yeah, smooth talking guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And establishes a demagogue.
Stylish, of course.
Yeah. Demagogue. And who doesn't take long before he becomes an outright, or attempts to become an outright tyrant.
Yeah.
Okay, from that position. But what the form then is one in which you have the demagogue promises, in order to become powerful, promises as many people as he can goods at the expense of other people.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So here you get like a sort of an alliance of the one and the many against the few.
Yes.
Right. Which
the one, many,
few.
Yeah.
Right. And so, which is a total repudiation of the hierarchical understanding of a just society, in which there is just rule all the way down.
Yes.
Right. So the tyrannical form is turned against itself internally.
Yes. Maximally in the sense.
Maximally.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And okay, so the ultimate sort of consequence of this is it's really sort of a form of suicide.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Where
societal suicide.
Where this alienation becomes of a person against himself. Mm-hmm. Right? Now he's destroyed even his family, right? Yeah. And it's just him in the world. Mm-hmm. And that at some point he'll actually, like the slave, because basically we use this language of slave and free man, and it's important because to be an instrument is to be a slave, a living instrument. Yeah. Right? And so this apparatus that exists, the tyrannical apparatus, treats human beings as instruments, right? It's a bureaucratic form.
Right.
And so that at some point you're so desperate for the human good, which is an essential aspect of that happiness, which is always social. Yeah. That you will choose the slavery. Yeah. Even in the kernel of your own, even
last shred of dignity
you have left, where you were just pursuing your own goods. Yeah. That you'll choose the slavery and kill the free man that was inside you and eliminate him. Yeah. And this is the move that like Hannah Arendt and stuff talks about, the move to totalitarianism, the perfection of tyranny, right? Where the individual, it's a sea of atomized individuals who are so desperate and so lonely and so unhappy that they'll believe anything, they'll do anything, they'll conform to the machine. Yes. Yeah. Right. Okay. So
that's the path of tyranny we follow. Yes. Through the classical kind of Platonic descent of the forms of tyranny, forms being what we meant earlier, right? The actuality of this people are being drawn up, but it's the actuality, right, of their ultimate destruction. Right, they're more and more destroying themselves, and that's the form that's becoming actual. Yeah, and where it looks like the power, right, of the tyrant is increasing. But remember, power was just pure efficaciousness. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that is by eating oneself, by cannibalizing by the society's cannibalizing
until there's
itself.
Nothing left. I mean, they say in the end, the tyrant himself is as much a slave to the mechanism as everyone else. Yeah, I mean, what can he do? Yeah. I mean,
it's Lewis. It's Lewis's abolition of man. Like when we follow this out to the extreme, man tries to abolish himself. Right. Right. And ultimately, what wins is passions or something like that. these lowest
So the tyrannical,
appetites.
but the point is like when they say monarchy and tyranny are the furthest away from each other, it's not some sort of moral worth.
Mhm.
It's not like because one's bad and one's good,
Yeah.
that they're the most similar.
Yeah.
It's like no, they're the furthest away from each other structurally.
Mhm.
Like the actual form of the society and of the souls of the people who populate it are as far away as you can get.
Yeah. So I think we laid a lot of this groundwork, and it took a while to take the different steps. But I think they're pretty clear, right, when we made major transitions. And I wonder if we can apply that to. I mean, I remember some comments that that Adrian Vermeule made at that conference, and I want to see what you think about some of them. I mean, he made a comment. I can't quote him exactly, but it was basically like what we need nowadays because of the situation we're in our society. We need a super powerful administrative state, right, to embody, I think that was his word, to embody the will of the many, right, against these oligarchical few.
Right.
And that sounds plausible, right, at a certain level because it's like, well, the many are suffering. Right, and the few are the ones who are the enemies, like these global elites or whatever you want to say, that are the technocrats and everything else.
Yeah.
Right, and so we need
oligarchs do need to be overthrown.
We need the oligarchs to be overthrown, and we need a powerful weapon, and we're not strong enough. So that's what we want. So please, administrative state, come down. Right, and do this for us and do our dirty work. Did he say that? That sounded like that's what he said to me.
It was something,
and
just
that
like
seems to me to be it seems like he's describing the lowest form on Plato's like down to the toilet of political forms.
And actually advocating for the next move.
It sounded like that to me.
The next move is the establishment of a demagogue.
Yes.
An alliance of the many and the one against the few.
Yes.
I mean, that's in the Republic.
And the one was the administrative state with a super strong executive.
The administrative state in the classical tradition is what I'm talking about. Is this mercenary regime, right? Like they build, there's an anonymous, impersonal, not based on friendship, but based on bureaucracy. I mean, even someone like Max Weber understands these distinctions, right? Like these distinctions between charismatic rule versus rational rule. He does this kind of sociological language, but it's the same thing. I mean, he wants to make them value neutral, but we know they're not. But that there is the move into the rationalization of rule out of the personal, right? The move into the bureaucracy is the move into isolating the people who populate it from the ends of each other. Yeah.
Which is what we said in the very beginning of this talk, right? Is this that we transformed the pre-modern tradition, which was interested in all that, right? And just accept tyranny as the default, and then we're just going to organize it to our own personal ends. It's like for Anscombe, consequentialism, right? All it can be is just ultimately whatever preferences you individually want, and that's what right and wrong means. There can be no such thing as an intrinsically evil act, right? On that view.
So if we have an oligarchy right now, which it seems like we do, the classical approach would seem to be to ask the question, why is it that oligarchy works right now?
Yeah. What's making it efficacious?
How is it that we are an oligarchic society?
Yes.
Right. And then
the matter and the form are united.
How is it that we end that?
Yes.
And to just push forward into tyranny.
Yeah.
To push
is to
forward,
follow Plato's path down.
I don't understand.
It doesn't make sense to me.
And I don't understand.
And I don't understand because it seems like the exact wrong theory for the kinds of a lot of the policies, right, that are being advocated. Right, a lot of the policies we agree with a lot of what's being suggested, but it's like this theory behind it is going to ultimately make all those policies, right, ineffective, right?
I think they can't work.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't but do the opposite of what you want them to do in the end.
So we do want to fight against the oligarchs, and we do want to fight against.
Unless you're saying, and this is the thing, is like I want to give an opportunity. I mean, you mentioned earlier, you said that there's a wisdom in the idea that if you have a tyrannical society, that you can't just like snap your fingers and make it a monarchy, right? Because it's exactly.
So if we have a tyrannical form right now and we are oligarchical,
we have to try. I mean, part of what political prudence then becomes is how is it? Okay, we have.
How do we improve the form and matter composite? Because we can't separate them without destroying them.
Structure. I mean, clearly it's oligarchic.
It's in us and it's in them. It's in us, like technopoly. We are a technopolistic society. I like that word from Postman. Well, that's because we're also technopolized ourselves. And of course, to a degree, we don't want to separate ourselves from that. But the degree to which we can separate that from ourselves is the degree that there's a chance for that form to change. Right. Now, of course, a great leader can come in and initiate changes. That's possible.
We need leaders.
Yes. And so it's not merely the bubbling up.
No, but we are the leaders in our little worlds.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, that's the reason why.
So
that's the reason why we keep talking about like I keep talking, people say, oh, localism, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
You guys are a bunch of whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, what we're talking about is where just power is still efficacious. Like, where is it? So we're not in a straight up tyranny. We're not,
Yeah.
it's not, we haven't hit rock
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds.
There's worse forms of tyranny.
There's all kinds
Yeah.
of public, of common good, of communities of the common good that still exist. And
Yes.
those are precisely the places where
Yes.
authority is still operative
Yes.
and where we can actually act efficaciously,
Yes.
right? As
For the common
for
good.
the common good.
Yeah. Joint activity
and
for the common
that
good works.
Building of friendships at that level is, again, like we were saying earlier, populates those spaces with things that tyranny can't co-op.
Yes.
I mean, like friendships are not susceptible
Yeah.
to the oligarchs,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they have to separate us, and they have to they thrive on separation,
Yes.
not unity. And so, but I really think that, and what I was going to say is that
Yeah.
you were saying sometimes, the best you can do is try to move a tyranny into being less tyrannical,
Yes.
right? Like and sometimes with these guys, some of the guys that we disagree with,
Yeah.
I want to say, okay, if that's what they were saying,
Yeah.
if what they're saying is, listen, we have a corrupt society, it's tyrannical in these ways, our spiritual, the
Yes.
people's spiritual condition is such
Yes.
that
Degraded.
only like us and our sort of political prudence are determining that the way that we are kings to these people,
Yes.
we are at a place where we have to like operate within the tyrannical forms in order to move them out of it.
Yes.
But they're not saying stuff like that.
No, it's not
So
qualified.
I don't. It's
to me,
not qualified.
that was my worry with being
I mean,
united.
I want them to say that.
If Remuel is saying those things, it sounded like he was saying. I don't know how to interpret them otherwise at this point. But if he was saying that, then it wasn't nuanced. It was. I mean, he was talking about the Roman Imperium the whole time.
I know.
Right, and it was all about this classical form of massive power on the top that we would say is tyrannical,
Right.
at a conference called Restoring the Nation. It did not fit. But a lot of the things that a lot of the other panels were talking about problems here and there and wokeness and sure, absolutely.
Absolutely, right.
But it just seems
I
like
know,
that
of course.
theoretical foundation needs to be jettisoned, and we need to get a right foundation so that our building can actually build solidarity networks and these friendships can actually expand for the actual common good.
I agree.
Because we
100%.
might want to fight evil, but what are we building as we're fighting evil? Right? We need to build something that lasts in the end.
I mean, there's just no answer other than the happiness that is had in friendships.
Yeah.
Okay, so like that is the political end, right? I mean, and it's actually quite. I mean, I have a quote from Aristotle, right?
Yeah,
So
go for it.
I'll read it. Okay. Aristotle says, this is from the Politics. It is clear then that a state is not a mere society having a common place established for the prevention of mutual crime and for the sake of exchange. These are conditions without which a state cannot exist. But all of them together do not constitute a state, which is a community of families and aggregations of families in well-being for the sake of a perfect and self-sufficing life. Hence arise in cities family connections, brotherhoods, common sacrifices, amusements, which draw men together. But these are created by friendship, for friendship is the motive of social life.
Yeah.
The end of the state is the good life, and these are the means towards it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is...
Yeah, that is not sentimental. That is from one of the wisest philosophers of all time. That has to be taken seriously. Right? It is not a nostalgic, sentimental vision. That's the true power we have. And we have to believe and trust that and reject the lies of the modern political philosophical tradition, which is saying we need some super powerful, rational plan and model that's imposed by super powerful men that are very effectual. That's an illusion.
And it won't work.
Yeah.
It won't.
Yeah.
I mean, the resources or the means of efficacious power that are available to the tyranny are only efficacious in a tyrannical people.
Yeah.
All right. So what I mean, and they only have the result of driving those people deeper into tyranny.
Yeah.
All right. So promising money, threatening jail time, building bureaucratic apparatuses that govern our lives.
New laws that
These things will not result in friendships.
Yeah.
And I think it's absurd.
Yeah.
I actually honestly think it's absurd to think they will.
Yeah.
And so I have to.
It's necessarily short-sighted. It needs to be nuanced and put into a broader context to be believable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a I mean, it's a problem because in the within the classical philosophical tradition, what are we to do?
Yeah.
I mean, the point is there is no.
This situation that we're in literally could not have been envisioned right at the level we're in now. Yes, Plato's got the general scope. I mean, Aristotle's made some statements about what the good is, but I think that one point that I wanted to maybe end with, right, is a reflection on the value of the classical tradition.
Right.
Right. So yes, we see that they have a generic kind of picture. They notice the end. Aristotle's noticed the end in a certain shape.
Right.
Right. It's a far away. And Plato's seen what happens when evil, right, goes down this tyrannical toilet.
Right.
Right. But it seems like what we often forget is we got here because we used to be not just Greco-Roman, but we used to be Christian in our forms.
Yeah.
And so that did something to that Greco-Roman society that was formed, superseded it, and gave something far greater than it could have ever been.
We've already
now we've lost that. So we need to go back to the classics in a way in order to go forward right into Christendom and see what was done with that to raise it and elevate itself philosophically.
Well,
right,
I think we've already laid the pieces here for seeing that Christian fulfillment of it, because like we were talking about how the necessity of authority from above in order to close the gaps.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's necessary. It's like, well, where does that start?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. I mean, my point is like, this is a problem for the classics.
Yeah.
Right. Because you have to have that there's a breaking in from above. That is that which makes the construction of virtue and into truth and beauty possible.
Yes.
And that's the reason why the tradition says political authority is always a mediation of the authority of God.
Yes.
It's because it's exactly it's exactly a gracious revelatory.
And that was unpredictable on the pagan assumptions. And that reflection we thought about a long time months ago about Max Scheler in his critique of Nietzsche talks about this, right? And that the Christian form of love is a radical metaphysical and philosophical surprise,
right?
Right, and that is a different view of reality. The Greeks could only think of, or the Romans, like we got to kind of compete our way up to God. Right, and we're like, no,
Aristotle,
God has come down.
For example, Aristotle finds himself in this position, right? This predicament where he has this vision, like you're saying, he's grasping at the truth of a just society.
Yes.
But what he's forced to do is say, okay, there's a just society of friends that are the citizens.
Right.
Right. But so but now how do those guys?
Yes.
How can that citizen group subsist in a just society? Oh, well, the only way is by oppressing a non-citizen class, which is larger, and they're the ones who are working, and they're okay. So
he couldn't put together that.
So the point is that the non-tyrannical regime for Aristotle is itself tyrannical.
Yes.
It's non-tyrannical internally, but it's tyrannical external, against
he
others.
Couldn't put it all together.
You couldn't put it together. What the Christian thing does is open up in both directions.
Yes.
So you like what Thomas will do is he'll
say that's the metaphysical subsidiarity picture.
That's absolutely right. So Thomas will say the ideal friendship, the sort of paradigm of friendship, is not two peers, but is the most perfect friendship is an unequal friendship.
Yeah.
And that's because, of course, God's
doesn't
friendship
compute
for
for Aristotle.
The Father's friendship for his son, the master for his servant, right? That this is actually the perfect form of friendship, and that allows the hierarchy to go from bottom to top.
Yes.
And for friendship, now, because it goes all the way to the top, it's now empowered with grace and revelation. So that conversation that we're having, we talk about the king. Elevating our conversations, it's like it has no ceiling.
Yes, and I would say even going down, like now we see the complete hierarchical ordering of all the cosmos. Is yes, there's human society in here. It has hierarchy, as we talked about, and then there's angels and God, right? And then down there's all the material things. There's all the earth,
the sand.
Stewards of creation. It's like from top to bottom. This principle of solidarity and subsidiarity of love, right, and proper order, right, works at every single thing.
That's right.
And it's like the man in his most philosophical moments, whether Eastern or Western, has seen this point. Right. And of course, the Christian view sees it clearly. Revelation is said it authoritatively. We've already implemented it already at some point in our history, so we know it works. There's no question about it being utopian, right? And so when we say this is what we should be doing and this is how we should be acting, and with our kind of philosophical theological vision, there should be absolute confidence that this is the right thing to do. And we have to trust, right, the future to God and providence. It's not up to us to rationally order and impose something. We have a solution all of a sudden. So we have to be patient. And we can trust our tradition and the wisdom that we've inherited and hand it on and hope that that will continue in God's good mercy.
Absolutely right. I couldn't agree more.
It's great talking to you. I hope we can do it again.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It was good.
Yeah.
I hope it was okay.
It was really good reflections. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to the next one.
All right. Me too, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.